Today, Olaf and I will be talking about how to use GitHub Actions to run Terraform in an Azure subscription. I thought this was kind of a different kind of project than what I've done before. I've always wanted to do something like this because, um, either you can run it locally, which has its own challenges, or you can run it via like Terraform Cloud, which then you're dealing with, workspaces and other very similar issues you're dealing with will be dealing with this, or you can set up your own pipeline and have it run your Terraform for you. First things first, the biggest challenges I ran into were basically figuring out how to use um, like the secrets to authenticate into Azure, and then also having Terraform access the secrets. So we'll cover that too. So the first step was
You would
that,
think, of course, that with Microsoft owning GitHub now, that part would be made super simple, very streamlined.
yeah, you would think so. I mean, like once I figured out how to do it, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, it was tricky because even though I set it up originally for the subscription, which we'll go through, um, then I was like, okay, well, Terraform doesn't have access while it's in its container, so you had to give it access too. So traditionally we will end up using like a service principal to access it. And actually, this part will allow um, GitHub Actions to access your Azure and Terraform to access your Azure. So you can use the same service principal. I created a new one just for the sake of the demo. But if you already have a subscription service account, you could probably reuse it. So you basically run this command. You can steal it from the Azure documents for Terraform, the service principal client secret. But basically, from a command line, after installing AZCLI and logging in, you can run this AZ80 service principal create RBAC contributor. So
And
you
incidentally,
actually,
you can create that in Terraform as well. Assign the role. All of that works very well within Terraform. And I would even recommend. I'd go so far as to recommend the management of the credentials that you're using within Terraform as well, because it makes for a very repeatable process to assign permissions.
oh yeah, that's a good idea because then you can just pull in the state of the like if I would assume you would have it outside of your project, your current project, but then you can always
Right,
pull in
right.
that credential. Yeah, that's a good idea. Really good idea. Um, but this also shows you like how to test it. I had to do this at least once to validate everything was kind of working. So then you do like AZ login with the service principal ID, client secret, and such. Okay. So basically, I would basically steal this, or not this specific one, but once you run that command, take that content, put it in a notepad, and then go into your, um, this is my GitHub repo, my personal one. So don't you guys do anything bad, which I don't think you could, but if you did, please don't. Anyways, inside of the settings, there is a secrets and actions, and inside of this repository secrets, first I created a secret for the login, which is the full uh, service principal JSON that we just pulled out. So you can just drop that in. I call it Azure credentials mainly because a lot of the documentation calls it that, and it was just kind of easier for me. Later on, I discovered that I needed to create a like separate variable for, these are all going to be environment variables. So I created a separate variable for client ID, secret, that's the password, subscription ID, intent ID, and this is for Terraform itself. So I can inject the secrets or the environment variables into my script. Um, let's see.
So regarding that, are you also able to tie directly into Key Vault through there, or would you have to do that within your code?
You have to, I was thinking about that, like putting my secrets into Key Vault. You would probably, um, I think you could use Key Vault like inside of your job steps here. I've done that with Azure DevOps, where I pulled my
Yeah.
secrets from there. Um, but I guess the only hesitation I have about it is the original Azure credentials logging in.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, so you'd have to provide access to this key vault to GitHub,
mhm,
which may require authentication of some sort, or may just require like a GitHub runner IP. I don't know if you know the outbound IPs, but at any rate, that may be something to look more into. If you don't want to manage the secrets within environment variables, you may be able
right.
to point to some sort of vault resource, and then you can capture whatever dynamic changes are applied there. And you just need to figure out the authentication, which could be a certificate even, that maybe is a little bit easier to manage.
Right, because like the downside of this methodology I had was the minute that changes, you have to change it. You know, um, you have to update the credentials here, and then change each value and get it right. 5 times, and that doesn't sound too bad until you're trying to troubleshoot something. Well, why isn't the client ID working? Well, I copied the something else, right? So
The object
it
ID,
would be
right? The
yeah.
the bane.
Something's wrong and you're trying to troubleshoot stuff. It can be a pain. Beyond that, you need to create, and here's my personal repo. Um, but for GitHub Actions, you need to create a directory called .github/workflows. And in there, you can create a build YAML. So it's at the root of the directory. All right. Um, and I think I stole a lot of this formatting from the document. So you can pretty much copy and paste a lot of this. But my first one is it's called CI. Cool. This says like this shows you like how to like this is when it's looking at uh, whether you're pull like every time somebody pushes to master or does a pull request to master. This is when this pipeline will run. Okay. Next step up. Um, this says, what kind of agent do I want to build this application on, right? So if you're doing CI/CD, generally you have some sort of build agent that all the processes run on. Um, you could have, like, I'm using a GitHub Actions or a GitHub runner, and it's using Ubuntu latest. But you can have this change to being like an on-prem agent, depending on your needs. Or you could do Windows, you can do CentOS. If CentOS still exists, I think they changed it. But there's a lot of different options you can do for your build runner. Okay, once you have your build runner, then you start creating steps.
And just one comment about the build runner. So is it looks like probably the way that that's constructed is that it's pulling that image directly from Docker Hub. Is that
Mhm.
fair to say? Yeah. So if you wanted to specify a private registry or just an alternate registry, is there a way to do that here? Is there a way that you can define the registry?
I'm not sure, but I imagine there's probably tons of different options for the build agent. Um, you can probably set that. I can do some research and get back to you on that.
Okay.
We can do an update to the video later, or when we talk about, you know, we can kind of go through the same process with Azure, AWS, or GCP to see if it's different, or creating your own build agent. I can look into that. So step one, there's this. So how this works is similar, very similar to Azure pipelines. I found it a little easier than Azure pipelines because pipelines, I always ran into like JSON issues where, you know, JSON or I guess be YAML files, but like you're worried about spacing and all those things. It seemed like the Azure pipelines was a little bit more finicky than GitHub Actions because once I kind of got going, it was pretty easy. So in this case, the first step is to log in into Azure, and see. I basically use it with, and then hit set the credentials. So this is stealing from the previous screen before, but now it's secrets dot Azure credentials. Next step would be to create the repository. This checks out your code, pulls it down locally onto your build agent.
Do you know if those secrets are encrypted in some way? Are they encrypted at rest and transit? Like, do you know anything about that part?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll make a note and look that up too. I feel like I would hope they would be encrypted, but
Yeah, I
like
mean, that makes
I
sense.
mean, I would hope, but then it could go the other way as easy. Or if you're on like the build agent, then which I mean, in my case, you wouldn't be able to log into this build agent, right? It's very much like it's been built and it gets destroyed after we're done. But if you're using like an on-prem agent,
Well,
while
I
that
think the bigger concern would be does GitHub have access to your secrets, or are they encrypted? Now, key encryption key is probably GitHub based. You may not be able to provide a customer managed key, but at the very least,
right.
is it an encrypted value so that the customer is the only one, the owner of this action or the owner of this repo is the only one that can actually read those values.
Okay, it is encrypted. Quick Google on my phone. It uses a lip sodium box to ensure that secrets are encrypted before they reach GitHub and remain encrypted until you use them in a workflow.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there we
that's
go.
excellent.
So we check out the repo. This pulls it down into your build agent. If you know, if, for people who may not be as familiar with this, maybe we should create a video on like just pipelines. I think that might be helpful. Then you got to install Terraform. This build agent just literally has Ubuntu. It doesn't have any tools or anything loaded on it. So you got to install Terraform. That's what this step does here. The next step is our favorite Terraform init, right? Now, I struggle with this initially because Terraform init actually goes and looks at your credentials and make sure everything's okay. I didn't have this environment stuff here first. Um, and so it kept bombing out. And then I also said to look at a specific working directory, which is data resources. Once you put in the secrets here, it's a key pair. This is very similar to like using your environment variables to access Terraform, access Azure using Terraform. So it does an initialize, and then it does the Terraform plan. And this is kind of important. I use the out file text because it's the same idea, right? Like you want to, once you've run this, you want to output to a file so you can guarantee that is what you're deploying. You know, um, you might be able to get away with not having the out file, but since it's a build agent, I just wanted to be specific and make sure that it was actually going to work. I also put in the environment variables here. I felt like that was probably necessary, but I don't know. Maybe if you do it once, you don't have to do it again. Same working directory. Then we do a Terraform apply, and you define the out file that want to deploy. Same kind of thing with the secrets, and then working
Now, I
directory.
see on some of this, like Terraform apply, as we all know, it's going to, in theory, prompt you to accept, to say yes or no to that.
Right.
So I can't imagine this is treating that any different. So it seems like it would just pause and wait. But I do know that you can auto accept those. So that may be worth
Yeah, I might
mentioning
have.
too.
Yeah,
Auto approve, rather.
it should be auto approving. So I might have. This might be an older version of it. I'll have to check the
Yeah.
extra repo.
And I think auto
Um,
approve has some rules attached to it. So well, yeah, I don't know, but
well,
it would be
I have
worth.
auto approve here on the destroy.
On destroy, yeah.
Um, I think that maybe if you use the file, it doesn't require it. But I will take a look itself.
Oh, this is
Uh,
the out file was the state. Is that right?
out file is the plan.
Yeah, yeah, it's the plan. Yeah, sorry.
So since I'm defining it, maybe it doesn't ask for that as much. And then what I wanted to do is after it's done, I just wanted to destroy everything. Um, in my case, like normally you wouldn't do this, but since I'm doing it as a demo, I'm like, I don't want this to stay up like I have on my other videos, where I just left resources out there and realized I forgot them. Um, but that's kind of like the quick run through of this. I can always you can put a link in the video of how to get to this build.yaml file. It's a public repo. There's nothing exciting going on. Um, but yeah, now that I kind of showed you the steps on how to uh, kind of create the pipeline, I just wanted to show you it running. So I logged into my GitHub repo. I went to Actions. We're going to go to my last build since I'm not going to check anything in. And I'm going to rerun the job.
And you're right. The if you give it a saved plan file, then it just executes.
Okay, so I clicked on the build job over here. You can see it logged in to Azure. It's checking out my repo. It's checking out my repo. Okay, I did a Terraform install. It looks like there's something going on with the setup dash Terraform v2, but that doesn't matter to me. See, it did the Terraform init here, initialized the backend, and then I did the Terraform plan. And this is like all based off of that resources. So you can see that it created a app service plan, web app. And then it's currently applying. One thing I did do is I did have it still, it's pointed to a remote backend. So, if you run
Which
this on
makes a
the,
lot of sense because
yeah,
this is all.
if you run it on the runner and you create a Terraform state file, it'll destroy the Terraform state file the
Right,
minute
right.
it dies. Okay, so it created a web app, 2 resources added, 0 change, 0 destroy because there's nothing out there. And then here's my destroy. And because I used auto approve like we were talking about before, it just tells you what's going to be destroyed and destroys it all. And then cleans it up and you're all done. I so far have had pretty good experience of GitHub Actions versus the pipelines or Azure pipelines. I did
Azure
pipelines,
DevOps.
Azure DevOps pipelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, Azure DevOps. I felt like GitHub Actions was a little bit clear on how to do things and kind of get you started quicker. Pipelines, they were just like a foreign language at first and trying to figure out what I actually needed and where it needs to go. But
okay.
But I got it to work. I ended up starting off with the classic editor, in
Yeah,
the
that was
Azure
one of the
DevOps
things I
pipelines.
noticed in DevOps. You they don't default you to the classic editor, so they have a couple of different modes that you can enter in data.
Right.
And I think you should probably just get to the file like you were showing on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a little bit more straightforward. But yeah, there are some different ways. And in fact, in Azure, the thing that was confusing to me was the fact that there's like a marketplace for like templates and images and things that isn't obvious unless you run the little drag and drop editor,
Mm-hmm. I just felt like to get started, once I found the editor, I was able to kind of drag and drop and then come through and I make my edits to make it better. Like get something working and then, okay, cool. I need to make this change. But This is pretty much what I have for this. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. Leave a comment in the video. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and we'll continue to make more. And thank you again.